Today I'm chatting with Blake West. He is the founder of Alabama Estate Planning Attorneys. They have offices in Huntsville and Coleman, Alabama. Your focus, of course, is on elder law and estate planning. And Blake has restarted his live workshops since this whole pandemic situation, and just wanted to get a little bit of information about how your workshops are looking now, if people are actually showing up, if they're interested, and any insight you can share with us on how those are going.
Sure. We had our first workshop after the closings last week and maybe 10 days ago. And we had 3 sessions over 2 days scheduled, and we had to stop registration on all of them before the time came. Of course, the venues had reduced the size tremendously, because I think it had been about 50, but then we were cut down to 20 to make sure that we were 6 feet apart and spaced on the tables and that sort of thing.
And what venue did you use? What type of place was it?
Here in Coleman, we used a venue at the Chamber of Commerce, and it's set up for meetings, and it's a pretty good venue. It's easy for people in this area to find. And it has, if you utilize the parking deck, and in small town of Coleman, there's only 2 parking decks in the whole city. So it's easy to find this one. And if you park on the lower level, you can get into the building without being in the rain, which was important because one day it poured rain all day. And we still had probably 2/3 of the people who had registered attend in the rain.
Good. And how was the venue as far as working with, social distancing, as you mentioned, things like that? Were they pretty aware of how to conduct this event?
They did. They had our chairs and tables set up, and it's pretty easy. Most of the tables at those type things are either 4 feet or 6 feet. And the ones in this venue are 6 feet long. Now, they had all of them. I rearranged them a little bit. They had them all with one chair in the middle of a 6-foot table. But we had many couples coming.
Right.
So I moved all of the chairs, the first chair at the end of one 6-foot table. Then if we needed a couple, then they would be at the end of the next 6-foot table. Then there were 4. The room is big enough for 4 across. And so then you just spaced it out based on how far you were up on the next table.
But are these like rectangular kind of tables?
Yes.
Or
Yes, a 2-foot by 6-foot table. Well, maybe a 30-inch by 6-foot table. We didn't initially start out with 2 chairs at any position, but if a couple came in, there were extra chairs available. And so then we would just get a chair for them so that they could sit together.
Perfect. And did you provide any sort of food and beverage or anything to attendees?
Yes, not nearly the quality that I normally do. No, we don't provide a meal, but we normally have some good snacks, from a local bakery or things like that. But the things we provided this time were all prepackaged that we purchased at Sam's, the local wholesale club. And they were all prepackaged, and we normally would have coffee. Often we would have tea that you pour yourself and have ice, but we had water that was pre-chilled and, it was still reasonably cold, and all individual containers, little bottles of water. And everything was prepackaged and just spread out on the table for them.
Okay, so just more grab and go,
Right.
Single serve. Gotcha. Okay.
Right, and we had, we tried to have a variety. We had some sweet stuff, and we had some. One of my favorites for snack too is the little trail mix, nut mix bags, and so those were popular also.
Okay, good. And how many people did you say you were aiming for now that, the capacities are reduced a bit?
Well, the one that you helped us with right when, and it was scheduled for, everything in Alabama started closing on the 13th. I was in that same venue leading a CLE on the 13th, and everybody kept getting these orders from all the different courts. Courts closed. We're not doing this. The Alabama Supreme Court did a bunch of those. And we were all more concerned with what probate courts were doing. And we had several orders come in that day while we were at our CLE. And it was scheduled for about 10 days after that. So that was canceled. And for those 2 days, we would have had a total of about 60 registrations. So that was going to be great. And far better than any advertising I had ever done on my own. Far, far better. Thank you. But for this one, we were limited to, their statement was 20 people. So we could have had a few more people, because sitting 2 people at some tables that lived together, but we wanted to honor what they had set, because we didn't want to get anybody feeling too cramped or anything anyway. So we had set it for 20. Now I think we had maybe 24 people register for one of the 3, but we knew that there were several couples, so we weren't too worried. And so we had 20 to 24 for each of the 3 things, and we probably had 14 to 15, 16 people at each one of them on average.
Okay. So for all of the workshops you've had since reopening, essentially, it sounds like, or you tell me, I guess, what percentage of people are actually showing up versus those that are signing up online?
I would say we had about 60%, but one of those days we had a terrible rainstorm, and people still, now, I gave them instructions of how to get in without getting really in the rain, but we had, I would say, 60 to 2/3 of the people who had registered show up. Maybe it was 50% on the rain day, but it was it was a lot of rain. It rained hard while we were there. And so that keeps people away all the time.
Definitely. And how do you feel that the, kind of the attitude of the people attending, how was that?
We had a few people in masks. We had some masks available if someone had asked. We had extra hand sanitizer available. And at this venue, the restrooms are very convenient for hand washing if anyone wanted that. No one mentioned it specifically. One person was going to sit, the tables were perpendicular to me, or what I would call perpendicular to my facing. And so we had one person who was going to sit real close to the podium and where I had my computer, and we had a big screen projector. Mm-hmm. And so I did say, listen, why don't you slide down one so that I wouldn't be so close. And it was a fairly elderly gentleman, and he was fine with it. Now, we didn't do any handshaking, mm-hmm. and no one seemed bothered by not handshaking, certainly. And typically I'm there as people are coming in, and I like to meet people. Hey, Andrea, how are you? I'm Blake, and and just greet you. But so we did that a little differently, and people were in conversation. People didn't get as close as you typically would. So I think people had it in mind, but not to the point that it was keeping them away.
Okay. So, if they showed up, that means they, in some sense, are, wanting to get back out there and get this information that you're sharing. So I think that's a good step.
Everyone seemed very interested. And the thing that was really good is I believe that for all 3 events, we had 100% sign up for an appointment.
Wow. 100% sign up for an appointment of the people that came to the event. Wow.
If it was not 100%, we were only missing 1.
Wow. And
So some of
so,
those are still coming in. We haven't seen all of them yet, but yeah, everyone wanted an appointment.
great. I mean, what is an appointment like that, worth to you? Some people obviously are going to buy your service. Some people may have an appointment and then end up not. So kind of on average, I mean, what do you feel like each appointment's worth?
If we get one trust, then yeah, it pays for the whole the pays for the place, the food, the advertising, the BAMBIS. Yes, one. All you need is one.
Okay. So just
It-
one would cover your cost. Anything on
yes,
top of that's just gravy.
right.
Okay.
Well, now we have had one guy come in who is single. He doesn't have very much, and now his wouldn't cover it all because his is going to be very low because he needs help, and so we're going to make sure we help him.
Of course.
But any of the typical trust, one of them we would be at break even, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, we one of them would be
Wonderful.
break even.
That's wonderful. Okay. So obviously whatever you're discussing gets people really interested and they want to learn more and, come and talk to you one-on-one. So what kind of things do you talk about that you find really is resonating with your audience?
I've used the same presentation again, and my presentation is I go through some scenarios with I use old TV people, and we start out saying, here's what would happen for Barney. Barney was a deputy, and so what happens if Barney dies? And we go through it that way. And so we cover 4 different families, and we have some other sometimes a little story thrown in here and there, and talk about what wills do and what wills do not do. There's a lot of people who are confused about that and not really understanding that if you have child number 1 as a joint tenant on your bank account, the bank's going to give that child the money. Your will says split it 3 ways. No, the bank's going to give it to one of them, and then what's that one going to do? Most likely keep it. So we talk about those things, but we go through just some different scenarios of no planning is bad, lots of planning is good. It's the theme.
Okay, great. Well, I thank you again for your time and for giving us this information. Hopefully this gives people the confidence to start these back up and get back out there. It sounds like people in Alabama at least are ready, and hopefully in other parts of the country as well.